All right. Good morning. Good
Just
afternoon.
clicks leave meeting.
Huh?
Fine.
Instantly. Yeah. Welcome to the Me Music Podcast. On this week's episode, joining me and Tommy got the wonderful Jake Howsam Lowe, coming from Australia. How's it going, buddy?
Oh yeah, good. Howdy. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Oh, bro, it's such a privilege to have you. Big fan, man. I'm a huge fan of Helix Nebula, gotta say, even though I've like overplayed your first album. Uh, Can you tell me, am I going to get some more anytime soon?
I think everyone's overplayed that album at this point. But yeah, I don't know. There will definitely be more Helix at some point. But it's been so long that I've stopped giving any sort of estimation because every time I give an estimation, that gets pushed back because we have things come up, and so
Mm,
I can
mm,
guarantee like we won't die without putting out another thing. There is
okay.
more music that we've written and that we have like going, but I just have no
Mm,
idea when that's going to happen.
mm. Yeah, well, you're
The
like you must
excitement
be
will stay.
you got to be a busy guy. You've done lots of work. You've toured with Plini. Did you do the backup guitar for Plini, or were you just touring alongside him? You did backup, right?
Yeah, I mean, with Plini's music, it's like, is it rhythm guitar or is it lead guitar? Who
Mm.
knows? Well, it's kind
A
of
little bit.
yeah. So we he's obviously a guitar player. He is Plini, but yeah, he's kind enough to give me lead sections and things that are fun to play. But yeah, so we've got like I think we've got something like 13 weeks of touring in the next 18 weeks or something. So it's going to be full on
Wow.
for the next little bit.
Yeah.
Mm.
You know, you guys, I'm pretty sure Plini was doing a tour with Mitchell about a year ago, right? And you did an Australia New Zealand tour, with Zyteki. Am I correct?
Yes, that was just before the pandemic, so that would have been
Yeah.
2019. So I mean,
Oh, yeah,
I
quite a while ago, yeah.
I feel like
And then
I feel
I
like
was, oh,
the
sorry,
two
guys.
years of the pandemic are gone, right? So
Mhm.
like
Mhm.
they don't exist. So it feels like it was a year ago.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, we don't count those years. We forget them from our minds. Um, ignored. Um, but yeah, I was like so excited to go to that show, but you didn't have one down south part of New Zealand. You only had up like Wellington, Auckland, kind of standard. And you had Zyteki with you over in Australia, and then when you came to New Zealand, he didn't come with you. You had the heavy metal ninjas. I was a bit
Yep.
heartbroken by that. I was like, I'm not gonna pay as much as I want to see you guys again. I'm not
The
paying
heavy metal ninjas, bro.
for heavy metal ninjas like $500 for a flight up North Island. Ooh, if you had Zyteki, I mean that's it. That's my three top artists all together. I've got to
Yeah,
go.
I think it's like uh I think New Zealand is always awkward for people who come from a long way to play
Yeah,
Australian tours because Australian tours are usually weekend tours only, and then it's like you've got to wait another 4 days for the next weekend to go to New Zealand, and so
yeah,
Okay.
like because it's not that profitable to play on a Tuesday in Auckland, you know what I mean? So
yeah. Absolutely, man. I
it's
mean, like
why
that's kind of the problem with the New Zealand music scene is that because it is such a small population and because of the distance from any other land, you don't get much, or if any, really international music artists come here to tour. And the lack of cities means that when they do, they only go up North Island, Wellington, and Auckland. So the music scene is not as buzzing here
yeah,
as
I
it
feel
is
like
back in
it
London.
only really works. It only really works if the artists are big enough to do like middle of the week shows in Australia, because then it's like, oh, you can spend one of those weekends flying to New Zealand. But so many of the tours we do, it's like the band who's supporting us will play the Australian shows and then go home because they can't afford to just sit around in one city in Sydney for 4 days waiting for the New Zealand tour. You know what I mean? Um,
Yeah,
Mm.
it's a bit
yeah,
unfortunate, but I mean, least we
That
get to
is
come
by
over.
that's by far the most exciting show that I've seen in New Zealand in my 5 years here. And I was just so upset that it didn't come down to the South Island. Otherwise, I would have instantly been there. It's quite a distance still between where I'm at like South Island, to get up to Auckland. It's quite a distance. Um,
It's
but
funny. I'm doing like a week and a bit long holiday in New Zealand after these New Zealand shows we're about to play, and
wait,
I'm not
oh
going to the
wait,
South Island for that very reason.
yeah, like so you're coming to New Zealand again? I didn't know that. Are you going to be playing in South Island at all
Yeah.
or not?
Nope,
Nah,
we're
nah.
literally doing Auckland and Wellington.
Yeah, no one ever
So
comes down here, bro.
yeah,
No one ever comes down here. It's a shame because it's beautiful, but
I
there's
wonder if
not
heavy metal ninjas even
logistics.
allowed.
Yeah, I mean, I'd probably go see them if they came locally, sure. But oh man, I would have traveled for like my three top in the guitar world artists, Mitchich, Plini, and Zyteki. That is an incredible lineup for a show. That's mind blowing. That'd be phenomenal.
yeah.
But
We've been really lucky with the line we got to play. Like it's always some of my favorite artists ever, so I'm always just like spoilt for tour mates. You know what I mean?
yeah, how does that feel actually being up on stage with like such big names now? Because I remember seeing Plini when he was like kind of starting off earlier days, and now he's actually big. He's really big. How's it like being part of that journey?
It's pretty insane. Every time every time he's told me the next tour we're doing, I kind of don't believe it. Or like every time he's like, "Oh yeah, we're going to be headlining a US tour," and I'm like, "Are you big enough to headline a US tour?" And then it's like it sells out, and you're like, oh, "Okay." And then it's like, "Oh, we're going to be supporting Periphery." And it's big enough to support Periphery? Oh, okay. It's like, "Oh, we're doing a tour with Test Between the Buried and Me." It's like, what? Um, and now it's like, oh, the next Australian tour where Protest the Hero are direct support to us, and I'm like, really?
Whoa.
Does that make? And then you look
Yeah.
at the numbers and you're like, oh, that does make sense for an Australian tour. He is that big here. Like it's pretty crazy, but it's been awesome going along with it. I mean, it's always surreal, even like being on stage with guys like Jakob and David. Me,
Mm.
I remember me and Simon like idolizing those guys back when we were in university and like listening to Below One and just learning all the licks and being like, man, this guy's ahead of his time. And then now it's like we play with him and he's a cool guy and we actually get to play his music live sometimes, and that's awesome. But
That is amazing.
yeah, and even I mean on the last tour, the last Europe run we did, Per Nilsson from Scar Symmetry came up and jammed with us, and it's like he was literally in Meshuggah for 3 years. And
Yeah.
I kind of my mind
Incredible.
that we played with him.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's always there's a lot of pinch yourself moments playing with Plini, but it's I mean it's a lot of fun.
It's crazy.
No,
It's crazy. I think
absolutely incredible.
when was the first time Plini was over here in the UK? I'm trying to remember. Was it 15?
The first thing he ever did in the UK was Tech Fest in 15.
Yeah.
With had Jakob on guitar, Simon on bass, and Malian on drums.
Yeah, I was there for that.
And then I think the second Europe thing he did was the Animals as Leaders intervals or plintervals run.
Was that the 17?
That was 16, I think, end of 16.
No,
And
16. Yeah.
so I don't think I toured Europe or the UK with him until 17, possibly.
Yeah, I think it was the 17 one where it was Nick Johnston
and yeah,
Mitch.
oh no, Disperse.
Yeah.
Oh, I feel like I can't remember if our first Europe one was with Disperse or if it was with. I feel like the first one was with Disperse and Mitic.
Yeah.
And then,
I don't know.
and then we did Nick and was it Nick and Mestis or was no Mestis was with Archeco? I can't remember. They all blew one in the end, but like
yeah, I bet they do. You must have been on quite a few at this point. Like
yeah, well, we were doing one Europe, one US minimum a year from 2016 to 2020. You know what I mean? So it's like. Yeah, I can never remember exactly which was when, but we did a lot of really cool ones.
Mm.
So,
Oh,
like,
man.
so right now, I guess your focus is touring with Plini, right? Like, this it's a lot of tricky material. You've got to keep up, keep learning, practicing his music. So, is that like your main musical focus and objective right now? Is to just be with the present doing this, rather than, let's say, like Helix Nebula music?
Helix is on the back burner only because, I mean, it first got put on the back burner because touring started, and that was a big thing for me and Simon, where it was like, wow, what is this? Like, this is a different world, touring for 3 or 4 months of a year. And
Mm.
but at this point, it's like we know most of the songs that are in the set back to front, especially after the year of touring last year. So we're playing one song which we've never played before on this upcoming run, so I'm learning that, but it's not that tricky. So I don't really need to focus too much on that until the week of, when it's like, oh, we have rehearsals and we really get into the swing of it. But I've got all my solo music that I kind of focus on, and like Helix is kind of it. Helix is such a group process where me, Simon, and Stephen all need to be on the same page at the same time, with free time away from anything else and the musical drive to do it. And
Takes a lot, right?
yeah, to find a time where it syncs up with Simon's mixing commitments and my teaching commitments, and then the touring with Plini, and then Stephen working on his own stuff. And Stephen's only just left his retail job that he's been in for however long, so he's got more time now. But up until the end of last year, he was flat out working full time. You know what I mean? So finding
Stephen's insane, man. Stephen's crazy.
I mean, Stephen's the best shred guitarist on the planet.
I would like to put him and Galen Stapley from over here. What a crazy guitarist! They would be insane together. Like the shreds that I've seen Galen do CAFO by Animals as Leaders at 150%.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I don't understand. But then you watch Stephen play, and it's like, oh, I don't know how to make my fingers move.
That's how it's felt watching Stephen for the last 12 years. You know what I mean? The first time me and Simon met him and jammed with him, it was like, okay, this guy is better than anyone I've ever seen. I guess we have to keep up with that. Which is great. Keep this on our, like, he's horrifyingly good. But yeah, so getting Helix together to get stuff done. We've got a full album written. We have recorded a lot of the guitars for it. It's just the last 4 or 5 years, it's been no time that all of our timetables sync up to do stuff. And so maybe after this lot of touring, I'll talk to Simon and see if we can just block out a little bit of time to get moving with it. I think that's the main thing, is that if we can find a small amount of time to actually get the ball rolling, it'll happen pretty quickly. It's not going to take a super long time to get an album finished, because it's already mostly done. But it's just getting that ball rolling takes a lot of motivation on all three of our parts, you know what I mean? And just the timing. So for me, I've just been like, I'm always writing my own music, my solo music, and trying to figure out when I can financially make that stuff happen, because it's like doing something on your own takes a lot more financial effort than doing something in a band. And then like doing the Plini touring, it's like just sheer time. You know what I mean? Musically, it doesn't need that much of my attention, because we know the music. It's not that tricky for us at this point to put it all together. It's just, hey, you're going to have the 3 to 4 months out of the first 6 months of the year, you'll be on tour. And I'm like, okay, I guess I won't be working on my own stuff, or I won't be doing Helix stuff. Not that I'd ever complain about that. It's an amazing gig to have, but yeah, that's just the reality of it.
Yeah. Absolutely. Like,
I also teach full-time.
Oh, do you? Like, do you teach more local or online?
I pretty much exclusively teach online, with a few exceptions, but it's basically full-time-ish teaching of people who want to learn Plini songs and Helix songs and guitar technique and composition and theory and all that kind of stuff. And so that undoubtedly takes a decent amount of musical energy. So
Mm.
I'm maybe not writing as much as I would had I not been doing that job. But again, I can't complain because I get to talk about guitar constantly and earn money for it. So it's good.
How much do you charge for an hour?
Currently I charge 90 Australian dollars, which is just, I think, relatively reasonable. It's just the reality of living in Sydney, you know, like Sydney's an extremely expensive place.
I'd say it's pretty reasonable from my
I'd say
knowledge
it's
of Oz
reasonable.
dollars, and like, you know.
Yeah. On top of that, just
Yeah,
like
so-
your level of experience as well, your skill level plus
Yeah, I mean, that's
standing in
like,
the industry.
it's that kind of thing when people question people who are providing any service and saying, "Oh, why do you charge that much if it's only going to take this long for you to mix my album?" And it's like, well, I spent 15,000 hours learning how to mix, and you're paying for that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, you're paying for the
that kind of thing.
expertise, not the time. Absolutely.
Yeah, you're paying for the fact that I've played guitar for like 17 years and played music for close to 30 years. So
Yeah.
I've played guitar for about 10 years of my life. Less so the past few years. But I'd be down to pay you for an hour just to get some like Plini technique and go for that. That'd be pretty cool.
hell yeah, man. Anytime you want to make it happen, yeah.
Yeah, I'll hit you up, man. There's I've always been a theory buff, where I just always focused on theory and composition, and never so much focus on technique. So that would be like where I'd like to push myself in learning guitar.
Yeah, I mean, I do a lot of technique work with students because I think I'm someone who I picked up guitar pretty naturally, but I didn't pick up like extreme high level shred technique. Super, like it wasn't organic for me. I've really had to deconstruct and figure out exactly how the really good guitarists like Steven are actually doing things and like put those processes into motion, doing a lot of research, and also in the process of teaching, you just figure those things out and how to articulate them. And so I do a lot of technical work with people because I kind of have a relatively cohesive way of articulating the techniques that go into the kind of more complex playing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, takes a lot of like working out over a long period of time when it's not just coming naturally like that. If you know, you just gotta take on each of these little pieces from all of the individuals that you're playing with and watching along the way. Yeah, no, it's interesting. Hard to articulate back out as well, I think.
Yeah, that's a big thing. There's a lot of amazing guitarists, but not everyone is a teacher. You know what I mean? Teaching is a skill in and of itself. It doesn't necessarily go hand in hand with being good at something.
No, yeah. You can perceive it without being able to do it, and still, you know, explain. Oh, this is this, and yeah, you can still do that, which is interesting. Yeah.
Now, someone like experienced, do you find that there's just some people that you cannot teach guitar?
It's not so much that there's people you can't teach. It's more the biggest thing for me is I find sometimes you find people who think they know more than they do or want to seem like they are. Sometimes you get students who will come to you and be like, "Oh yeah, I'm really good at this. I just want to do this kind of thing." And then you see how they play and you go, "Oh, well, that thing that you said you're really good at actually does need some work to get you to the point of doing this other thing." And it's kind of like a lack of self-awareness, if that makes sense, or a desire to seem like I get it. If I went to a guitarist that I really admired for a lesson, I may want to prove to them that like, yeah, I'm good at this and like praise me for being good at what I do. But I'd much rather someone come into my lesson being like, look, I kind of suck at these things. I might be good at some stuff, but I don't really know. Just show me what you think I need to improve and I will take that on board. And so sometimes you can get people who are a little more, they're harder to teach because it's a constant trying to prove that they are already good in some way, and it's like, well, you're here for a lesson. Let's both just go. Let's just start with a blank slate and build from there. But even those people, you can, and it's rare you find people like that. It's just every now and then, and usually those are the ones that will do 1 or 2 lessons and then drop off because they either think they realize that either they weren't prepared or they think they know how to do what they can do already, and what I'm saying to them isn't actually, they don't think it's helping them. You know what I mean? The ones who stay on are the ones who are like just desperate to learn and desperate to take in anything and just want to play guitar because they love it, and like every piece of information they just absorb. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, you do have to do music out of the love, don't you? You can't half-ass that.
Yeah.
Well, if you don't have passion for it, you're probably not going to be able to pull it off because you have to spend a huge amount of time to actually get good at music. You know, I've been saying.
Yeah, if you want to be really good, you need obsession. Like,
yeah, you do.
It has to be something that you're obsessed about. You know what I mean? Like, you just can't be as good as Steven Taranto if you're not obsessed about music or guitar. Like, it's just that's the, and it's unfortunately that's one of the things you can't teach. You know what I mean?
No,
obsession.
It is what it is.
Because I've been doing like these jam nights at my flat with people who are not musical at all. And I've kind of been showing them all the different instruments that I've got. And when it comes to either my guitar or cello, they generally just sound horrible and they try and rush it and they want to do whatever. They want to play chords, they want to be loud, and it doesn't sound very clean at all. But then you put them on something like a piano, and it's quite easy to get them sounding decent. Not like particularly amazing, but not so harsh. And it makes me realize how much more difficult an instrument can actually be than you kind of realize, because that startup is so much harder to sound good, which I kind of forgot when I started.
I mean,
young.
piano doesn't require you to have any skill to create tone. I want to say hesitantly, you know what I mean? Like guitar, cello, stringed instruments, tone is so much in the hands and how you fret and how you, like, all of those things, you know what I mean? How you pick. Piano, while dynamics create a lot of tone, and how hard you hit on a piano and stuff does change it. The base level of tone on piano is much nicer than the base level of tone on guitar or violin or cello or whatever. So it has its own challenges. Like I always say, theory between guitar and piano it's really hard for some stuff, because like piano you have to learn 12 different keys back to front with different fingerings, and that's mind-blowingly hard compared to guitar where you learn one key and then transpose it. We're a transposing instrument, a lot of stuff moves around, but at the same time, if you're trying to think notes and theory, the guitar is like 6 differently tuned pianos in front of you, so it's kind of more difficult in some senses.
Yeah, I definitely find that with piano I can quite clearly think in notes, and so that allows me to jump through different scales, modes, transition nice and easily, whereas when I'm on guitar that is extremely difficult to actually achieve. So I would think more in terms of shapes on guitar rather than notes, modes, whatever. You know, so it's like a different
for sure
mindset going into each instrument.
For sure.
I find cello kind of similar to a bass guitar, where I can actually start to think in notes again. Cello is a bit easier because it's tuned in fifths compared to a bass tuned in fourths. But yeah, that maybe that's just personal. I don't know. I just find it easier.
Sure.
Hey, I'm wondering, assuming if we have your permission, are we cool to jam a track from Helix Nebula?
For sure.
Yeah, cool. I love the whole album. Do you want to pick the song yourself? Whichever track you'd like us to play.
From Helix, what do I like the most? I mean, how about you go either Sea of Suns or Convalescence?
Yeah, I'm gonna go Sea of Suns. I think that's my favorite, bro.
Easy.
Okay, just checking you guys can hear that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh man, I'm getting like white noise on this. Anyone else?
Are you hearing that as well? Yeah, I can hear that. Whoa.
Whoa. Yeah, that's you.
There
That
we
was
go.
you, Jack, I think.
I just
I
paused
wasn't
the
getting
thing.
that.
Ah, okay. I don't know where that was coming from, but I could, yeah, I was hearing it just to get louder and louder.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
I've
strange.
had that happen. Zoom does that. Zoom does that weirdly sometimes, but I don't know what it's from.
I don't know.
Not
I
on
mean,
your end though, lucky man.
well, this is the same with the video thing today. Like, let's try this again. See how long this lasts. But it's just so strange. Yeah, ever since I've done this update today, we had a problem with the podcast earlier this morning as well. There we go, glitching. Um, like before, we basically had no problems with Zoom whatsoever. Um, I got the Zoom one meeting account thing just because I really like how smooth it was, but probably have to change now. 'Cause I've never had this problem.
I've had the white noise thing happen before, but I have no idea why. It seems to be really random.
Mm, mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I do like the audio quality usually in Zoom. I find it quite clear to actually
Yeah.
be able to hear people, and even in the recording, it's nice and clear. But There's I don't a plethora of different options out there. I've got loads to choose from. Mm. Anyway, I'm sorry to cut that song short. I will put a link to it
Oh, good. I've
in
heard it enough.
yeah, oh mate, you know what? I can hear it a lot more times, but yeah, I've heard it many times. And still, that's a good sample for the listeners to be able to say, hey, you know what? I'm gonna go check it out. It's an incredible album actually. It flows so nicely. It's just so
Thanks, man. I
calming.
think that's one of the things I'm used with that. It's like that album is so scattered and like frantic all the time, and somehow it still flows and is like memorable.
Hmm.
But I think that like that really comes from I mean, do you guys know the Arusha Accord?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Yeah.
How much I absolutely punished the Arusha Accord album in like 2010, and how much I just absolutely ripped off from them. I love those guys, and there is so much Arusha Accord in like the Helix DNA that if anyone
Yeah.
wants to know where I stole heaps of stuff from, go check out that album.
I love it. I love it. That's so funny to hear. Like I remember smashing that album out a little bit as well. But, like feels like ages, man. That's so crazy.
Yeah,
Like,
there were two obscure British bands that like were massive influences on me. One was the Arusha Accord, and one was a band called The Boy Will Drown.
oh, okay.
Don't know if you've heard them, but they were like a techie kind of prog grind band, almost prog. I don't know if you call them grindcore, but like prog death metal, maybe. I don't know. They were
Yeah.
really weird, aggressive band, but their time signature changes and their like sense of harmony and stuff. I was obsessed with it back in like 2009, and yeah, those two bands had a massive influence on the way I wrote the Helix stuff, and no one knows who they are now. So it's like
Yeah.
it seems like it came out of nowhere, but I'm like, no, I stole a lot of stuff from these guys.
Hey, man, it's good. It's influence. It's influence. Oh, man. I do know the Boy Will Drown, but I can't think of any of their music, like any of it. I know the name, and I just can't think of any of it.
They had one EP and one album, and then they vanished. Their singer is an amazing tattoo artist now.
Ah,
But I don't know what happened to the rest of that band. I don't know where they vanished to, but
yeah.
yeah.
Do you know the Schoenberg Automaton from?
Yep.
Yeah. I was thinking of Jake from that. It's a crazy tattoo artist these days, isn't he?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Abstract something. I can't remember his
That's
Instagram.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that band. My old band, my deathcore band, played a show or two with them back in the day.
Nice.
And that was always fun. Back in my deathcore years.
Oh man. Go on, what's your deathcore band? Go on, where's that gone? Yeah, you gonna blast that out there?
It was called Point Below Zero, and it's like
You were point.
got a bit of a
Nah, you were Point Below Zero. I know that band as well. Jeez.
oh, give me 1 second.
Oh my god. That makes so much sense.
Yeah, stack of the vinyls there sitting around. Because I'm a mild vinyl collector, and I was like, yes, I need every variant. Yeah. So that was my deathcore band, and we played some shows with the Schoenberg Automaton, and they blew my mind when I first heard them. I was like, how is an Australian band making music that's this technical and this like weird? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Seriously, those guys did some incredible stuff. They really did. Like it was a pleasure to see them play with Hirsch Effect over here. They did that little run over here. That was great, man. They were awesome.
Yeah, really cool.
Point Below Zero, dude. That's crazy.
Yeah, I feel like I'm old. I'm like 33. I just turned 33, and I've got lots of projects under my belt that just have kind of gotten some form of cult classicness. You know what I mean? It's like no one really knows I was in any of them, but kind of people have heard of all of them a little bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I remember that EP very well. It's like, yeah, I've forgotten about it, to be honest with you, but it's on a hard drive somewhere, you know.
One of those blogspot downloads that you just
Oh,
down
maybe.
2000.
I don't know. I went through Bandcamp pretty extensively at one point, so I was seeing quite a lot of stuff popping around.
I mean, we have 600 monthly listeners on Spotify, so you're part of a small group that remembers it, but it's definitely it's definitely cool that it has that. Like, we put out that vinyl release mid last year. It's the first time it's ever been on vinyl, and it like 250 copies sold out in like a week. And I was like, how are there enough people who know of this to buy that? You know what I mean? That doesn't make any sense to me at all. But like CDs were going for 300 Australian dollars secondhand, and it was like this. I have 4 of those sitting in my house. Why are people buying these for that much? You know what I mean? So it's weird how that happens, where you get that like cult following.
So great, $300 freaking as well, man. It's insane.
It's really weird.
Oh,
I mean,
man.
collectors will collect, right?
Yeah. They do what they do. Yeah. Oh man, like, oh, you got to just start valuing yourself up more. What's this $90? What's this $90 an hour shit? Come on, where's the $500 an hour
exactly.
lessons?
Yeah, that's the thing. If everyone, maybe I'd be able to if all the projects I'd done weren't just like different worlds and sporadic different groups, and no one knows who any of the members are. Like me and Steven both still get people being like, "You were in the Helix Nebula," you know what I mean? Like, so it's like we've both gone on and done other stuff, and I've gone on and done other stuff, and people who were into those things back in the day just have no idea that we've either done new stuff, or that people who find us now didn't know we were in those things.
Yeah. That's gonna happen, isn't it? Because you get found at different points along the way.
Exactly.
You worked on the Cake album, didn't you? The Odyssey.
That's another one that a lot of people, when they find out, they're like, "What?"
Yeah. I saw you in the credits, and I was just like, of course he is.
Like, I mean, on their album before that, the B-sides album, Other Slices.
Oh yeah.
I think I'd gotten to know Jack somehow online. I don't remember how I got to know him, but I think I messaged him on MySpace or Facebook and was like, "Man, that Slice the Cake EP is really sick. You guys are the best." And he listened to, I think he probably listened to Point Below Zero or Helix and was like, "Oh man, you're sick as well. Let's just, I'll send you some tabs. Let's jam on some stuff." And I think I ended up co-writing 2 or 3 of the tracks on Other Slices. There's literally a song called Nebula Cake, which is the Helix Nebula Cake.
Yes.
Because that was the first one we co-wrote on. And I think after doing 2 or 3 songs on that album, Jack was like, we're getting along really well musically. I've got, at the early on, the Odyssey album was supposed to be like 3 or 4 different EPs. And he was like, like 3 EPs I've been working on. Let me send them to you and see if there's anything you can do with them. And I think I probably ended up working on 75 or 80% of the songs on that album. I think Jack had like 2 or 3 that were fully finished before I got to them, but most of them were a pretty collaborative effort between me and him from a writing standpoint, which was that the writing process for that was one of the like most insane purple patches of my writing life. Like, we wrote that whole album together in probably a month and a half. Just like sending tabs back and forth constantly every day, and it just came together really quickly. So
that's insane. Like that album is, so intensive, and it's such a.
It's kind of how I get with Steven when we're writing Helix stuff or anything that me and Jack bounce off each other so well. That it's like, if one of us runs out of steam, the other one takes over, and then it reinvigorates the other person. So it just kind of, once the train starts rolling, you don't stop it. You know what I mean?
But there's not. I don't see any many acts really doing that. I don't. It's usually sort of one sort of person that's kind of mashing it all up, and then here, come together and help me out. Just like, flesh it out almost with a couple extra people, maybe.
You really have to be willing to like. Yeah, I feel like before you go into a process like that, you have to know everyone involved has let go of a form of ego and on. Look, if you don't like the idea that then I can always use it somewhere else. Like, it's not the end of the world if that sucks. And if you think that my idea is great, but you could make it better, that's what I want.
Yeah.
I want the final result. And if you change it and it does make it better, I'll be like, yes, let's go. Like, and I'm lucky with both Jack and Steven. It was very much a like, not really sure about that thing. Let me try something else. And you go, yeah, okay. Or yes, that's exactly what we needed. I know what should come next. I'm going to keep writing. You know what I mean?
Exactly. It's pretty I don't know. It's magical to work with just like such a product like you got. At least musically, I know there's other people involved in all of this as well, obviously, especially with Kate being, a vocalist and the stuff in completely other countries was just.
And I mean, they absolutely lifted that album up. You know what I mean? Like, without that vocal performance and that entire production, it wouldn't be the album it is. It's the same with Helix. Like, Sea of Suns was me, Steven, and Simon writing together, but like 4 of those tracks were basically just me writing with Simon kind of contributing some production ideas and bass parts. And then Crystal Plains was mostly me and Steven writing together. But it's like Simon's bass playing and production approach has a massive impact on the whole album.
Yeah,
you know
exactly. I mean? Yeah. Simon's just a hell of a performer as well. So like, I don't know, you guys have got such a great presences between you all. Like, I've not seen Helix obviously, but I've seen Simon, I've seen you live as well. So
yeah, I mean, it's always good. I'm very lucky to have been surrounded by so many ridiculous musicians. I don't know how it happened, and but I just seem to know every one of my favorite musicians of the modern era and get to play with a lot of them. So it's like it's a pretty good position to be in.
Yeah. Have we lost Jack? Jack, are you still there?
Maybe we lost him.
Oh no. I'll check. Hold on. See if I can get a message going.
Oh, he's here. Excellent. He's just dealing with Zoom issues, probably.
Oh, okay.
Because Zoom. Oh, no. Not sure why you can't hear me.
let's just talk for him through message box.
Still.
Oh man, it's not your day on Zoom, Jack.
And I have those days where it's just like, it isn't working and I don't know why, and nothing I do is fixing it.
Well, it's an update on his end. Supposedly it's just completely messed it up for him.
Oh. Yeah, this is why I never update my Mac.
Is this it? Is this the one? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, thank God.
Yes.
Sorry about that. This update has completely destroyed my Zoom. I have no idea why, but.
And I just love that you've been saying things and we've been ignoring you for the last like 10 minutes, and
yeah,
you're just like,
I had no idea. I was just like, oh, okay, well, maybe I'll just let them talk it out, you know. And then you're like, hey, is Jack here? I'm like, yeah, guys. Oh shit, you can't hear anything I'm saying.
Takes a lot of
Oh, that's actually hilarious.
Oh, I'm sorry, Jack. That was too funny. I was too into this conversation. I was like, when can we interject with Jack? And I'm just like, wait.
Honestly, I was really into it, and I was listening, just like really, yeah. I didn't actually know that you guys couldn't hear me. just like agreeing and keeping it up
Not-
with it. That's quite funny. Mm. Yeah, I do have to say a big apology for this show because I'm a bit upset that I can't have a video and my audio is also slightly bugging it as well, which is a bit of a shame. But nonetheless, it is great that I got the opportunity to sit and actually just talk with you, hear about your projects, hear about your journey as Helix and as with Plini.
Man, I'm happy to talk. Like I spend my days ranting about musical things, so I'm happy to just sit and chat.
That's cool, man. That's cool. Like, what? I mean, like, because you're already like playing with people that you love so much, and you're already kind of established yourself as a musician. Is there like some other tier that you inspire to achieve? Is there something you're still going for?
Yeah, I mean, for me, the main goal is to get my whether it's Helix success or I guess it'll be a combination of Helix success and my own personal solo music. I just want to get that to a point where if I can get my own solo music to a point where it essentially funds itself, that's kind of the goal that I'm looking for. It's like, because to live, I need to teach like 7 days a week. And I have a good schedule. I can book my own schedule. It's entirely on me how much I want to teach or how little I want to teach. But like, it would be nice that to know that I could, if I go, oh, I want to do a 9-track album, to know that I can afford to hire a drummer, afford to hire someone to mix it, afford to get the artwork that I want, afford to do a film clip, afford to, you know what I mean? All that kind of stuff. Yeah. All the myriad expenses that go into creating a release that if you're on a label, it's probably sorted, but then you never end up seeing any money back from it. Mm-hmm. And if you're in a band, that's being covered by 4 or 5 people. It's really hard to do that as a solo musician, I think. And like, I don't have the drive or the time to learn how to mix to a point that Simon has, you know what I mean? Or to learn, or Adam Bentley, who I get to mix a lot of my solo stuff. Like, that's not a thing. It'd cut a lot of costs, but it would also be the next 5 years of my life spending all my spare time learning to mix, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think just with the standards that I have for the music I want to put out, if I can get my solo music successful enough to a point that it will fund itself, because right now it's like you go, oh God, if I want to do a 5-track EP, that I'm going to have to spend, I don't know, between 5,000 and 10,000 Australian dollars to make it happen on the level that I want to make it happen. Right. And when can I afford to put 5,000 to 10,000 Australian dollars towards that up front with the hope that it will come back to me? And like, I'm probably successful enough that within 6 months to a year, I'll earn most of that back through streaming, through Bandcamp sales, tabs, whatever. But like, that's a large chunk of money to have up front to be down when you're an independent musician, you know what I mean? So the goal is constantly to get my own music out to more people and to have it get to a point where it's like, I know when I put music out, it's going to fund itself and will allow me to make more music kind of whenever I want. Because if the financial side of creating music wasn't a thing, I'd probably be putting out new music every 3 to 6 months, depending on how much stuff I write. You know what I mean? I have all these different projects that I have ideas for. I probably have, I don't know, 20 plus songs of different styles, like an album here, an EP there, that I'm like, yeah, I'd love to do that. But it's like, do I want to bother spending the time recording it if I don't immediately have the funds to hire a drummer to play on it and then to hire a mixer to mix it at the level that I want it mixed at? You know what I mean? And there's always going to be people who are like, oh, just cut costs and do it cheaper. And I'm just like, is it worth it for me to put out something that's not at the quality that my last EP was? You know what I mean? I just don't think that's worth it for me artistically, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think like I
definitely.
think the major difficulty, shall we say, all round with anything to do with music is just the affordability, which is something that like was always kind of my vision with MEyou music because it can be very hard to, especially if you're young, just affording instruments, then it can become very hard to afford, lessons constantly or to be educated in music.
Hmm.
And then as you get older, it's still like to even if you want to be a musician to kickstart it up, it's not something which you can just do for free. It's an expensive passion, and to actually turn it into something which is going to generate revenue for you, you have to actually pay first. You have to put a lot into it. You have to put into the marketing. At the end of that, before that, you have to get all the right equipment. You have to get the recording, the engineering down. It's something which
Yeah,
is,
well, I have to break the news to many students, break the bad news that like if your goal is to be an independent musician, you probably won't be able to do that if you're expecting your only form of income to be your music.
yeah.
That's just not feasible. And like I saw an artist, a visual artist, say something in a Q&A where someone was like, "Oh, how long did it take you to become a successful artist?" And this is someone who's got a few 100,000 followers on Instagram and seems like they're doing work. And they basically said, I'm not a professional artist. I'm a professional educator because they make their money from doing YouTube education videos, from teaching lessons, from doing courses. They don't make their money from the creative part of what they do. They don't make enough to survive off their art pieces.
Mm.
They have utilized their art pieces to garner enough of a following that allows them to monetize in an educational sense. And that's basically where I'm at. It's like, I don't make anywhere near enough money to survive off my own music. You know what I mean? I make money from touring and from teaching. And both of those things are facilitated because I have done my own music. I wouldn't have either of those gigs if my music wasn't semi-successful. People wouldn't come to me for lessons. And if I hadn't done cool music, Plini probably wouldn't have gone, "Hey, you're a cool guy and a friend of mine, but you also are good at so
Yeah.
so it's like I'm a professional educator at the moment who happens to have a little bit of side income from music or whatever else.
Yeah.
And so it's one of those things where I get students being like, "How hard is it to become a professional musician?" And I'm like, well, if you think I'm at like, or you get people asking questions like, "Oh, you're a successful musician. What's it? Blah blah blah." And I'm like, "Am I a successful musician? Like I'm very lucky to be in the position I'm in. Like I would never tell anyone otherwise. Like to get to tour, to get to perform, that's more than I could ever have imagined or hoped for."
Yeah.
But
That's kind of the point, isn't it? The fact
yeah,
that you
yeah, exactly. Like that's great, but also I'm not in a position where I could stop teaching and still survive. That's to me what a professional musician is someone like what a lot of people think a professional musician is. You know what I mean? Like an independent musician. Like I think a professional musician is anyone who makes money from any form of music, which is great. But a lot of people go into it seeing like, oh, you tour and you have albums out, therefore your music must be successful.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, on what scale? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm blown away that I have, I don't know, however many thousand people who listen to my music every month. It's mind blowing to me that I have any form of following. But at the same time, in the industry we're in right now, that's not enough to survive. So that's kind of the endless goal, is to have my own solo music be self-funding. If I can get to the point where I know there's no chance of me losing money on a solo release, or it earns me enough money that I can save up to do a release very quickly. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Because like 5 or 10 grand is a lot to just sort of front out and just be like, it'll come back.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, yeah, I'll have that back in a year or 18 months or whatever. It's like, cool.
Can I loan myself?
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly it. It's like, can I afford to loan myself this money? And like, I don't think it's something that's worth taking a loan out over. You know what I mean? I don't want to take an actual loan out and then be paying interest back, because you know the big problem for someone who is not already a successful artist. So you look at someone who is quite successful with their music. They have an inbuilt fan base that will spread their music regardless of how well it gets picked up by a social media algorithm. You know what I mean? Like if I had 100,000 followers on Instagram compared to 20,000 that I have or whatever it is, the even that, like, the algorithm of every social media platform is horrible unless you happen to tick the boxes that social media platform wants. You know what I mean? And so if you have a much larger following, even if the algorithm doesn't pick you up straight away, you probably have enough people that do see it and do happen to click like that will then trigger you into the algorithm and make it more, it's like a steamroller thing. You know what I mean? Like, it's a domino effect. Whereas I feel like a lot of artists are at a point where it's like, yeah, I look like I've got a following, but will the algorithm allow me to access that following? Like, how much do I need to spend on advertising through Facebook, Instagram, whatever, to actually reach that following, to get enough interaction to then trigger the algorithm to push it into other people's feeds? And that's entirely random, it seems, when you are at the level I'm at. Like, I can't guarantee. I can put out music that I think is way better than anything else I've done, and I can't guarantee it will do as successfully, not for any reason of people not liking it, but purely because it won't get shown to as many people. So it's one of those things where do you gamble on a loan, hoping that the music hits an algorithm somewhere and gets successful and popular and gets playlisted on a Spotify playlist? You look at the EP I did with I Built the Sky, and one of those songs got put on the progressive metal playlist and it has 700,000 plays. But you look at the EP I did before that on my own, none of it got playlist, and the most any of those songs has is 50,000 plays. You know what I mean? So it's like the difference in terms of how much exposure you will get is completely random. So the goal is to get big enough that you can bypass that. You know what I mean?
Definitely. I think we lost Jack again.
It's better without him anyway.
Oh, the pains, the shots. Oh shit. I just heard like a ding thing and I thought it was yours, and then I saw him like messing around with the mute button.
Where are you, Jack? Please.
He's lost to the ether. Oh my god, this is crazy. Oh, it's just such a pain. I hope it's. I mean, it says it's recorded still. It's just, this is so hilariously weird. I'm so confused, like, constantly.
Worst case, you can just. I'm sure I'll have talked enough that you can put together a supercut of just single words of me and make me say whatever you want.
Oh my god, we're gonna go. What is that? Deep faking.
Yeah.
Oh wait. Oh my god, hold on. He's messaged me. He needs me to close it. Oh, I'm so confused. Oh, he says he's sorry.
All good.
Yeah, it's rough, man. Yeah, I don't know. I think we could probably call it at that, man. I'm shattered. I can't believe it's this early for me and doing all this madness. But it's been real cool chatting with you, man. Like, it's been.
And happy to be here.
Yeah.
Yeah, feel free to, if he wants to jump back on for a little bit, I'm happy to. But yeah, totally cool.
Yeah, I mean, we could try and pop out and pop back in. He can splice some videos together and we can see what's up.
Yeah, if he wants to do that, that's totally fine. Not stressed. But if you want to call it at that, that's also fine. So just let me know what you want to do.
Yeah, I'll give you a text in a minute. All right.
Too easy, man.
All right, man. Catch you tomorrow. Good chat, so.
Yeah.
See you, man.